Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars.
SoundCartel.
More than just snapping back to the way things used to be, COVID-19 has delivered a wiping of the slate and opportunities that may never have existed otherwise. So, how can we keep focus on the future and not return to working ways of the past? From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. What will be the keys to our success in the coming year? If we listen to veteran business coach, mentor and leadership expert Alan Rodway, much of it comes down to our own views and attitudes. The way we see our staff, the people we turn to for advice, our preparedness to cast aside entrenched views about what it takes to run a business and to seize the day, rather than wait on the sidelines to see what happens next, after all the disruption of 2020. Alan's recently emerged from a big Keys to Success in 2021 Zoom session with many of his substantial list of clients, and it's an interesting barometer about how we're all viewing the year ahead. First, Heather Dawson asks Alan what he believes to be the biggest challenges for business leaders as we leave 2020 behind and move into 2021.
I think the biggest challenge that business is going to face is already happening, and that is not returning to the previous norms through which we ran businesses. And by that I mean there's just been such anxiety, stress, challenge around the whole COVID restriction arena, understandably of course, and all of the commentary understandably has been can't wait to get back to normal. And that's driving so much of what business thinking is at the moment, which in my view really lacks creativity, because it's sort of like saying, we've got a wound and we need to patch it up so that we're okay again, rather than saying, well, let's create a whole new domain here. And that's really troubling me, because really, I'm only really seeing two things that are likely to happen post-COVID. One is that not everyone's going to return to the office-type environment. If indeed you have a choice, then they'll continue to work at home a bit or a lot. And the other is that online shopping has obviously elevated and it will probably stay at that level, if not greater. Anyone knows, but I think that will happen. My little brain sort of goes, is that the best we can make out of this? That we've been through a pandemic that's like once in a lifetime, and the best we can come up with the way we run businesses from the lessons we learn is that we don't work from the office all the time and we'll have more online shopping. That just doesn't make sense to me, rather than saying, look at all the changes that have been forced on us in so many other areas. What can we make of those and what new ideas can we come up with? So that's the biggest challenge for business, is to not just go with relief as distinct from creativity.
Well, you've just emerged from a big Zoom session titled Keys to Success in 2021. Would you say the participants in the session were generally optimistic, or are they more worried about the year ahead?
They're both, and that will sound a contradiction, but it isn't. They're optimistic for reasons I've just given, because thank goodness we can sort of all get back in contact with human beings and so on, which of course is fantastic. So there's that sort of optimism, and maybe that's not the right word, but they're also troubled about how are we actually going to get out of this, and what is going to be the real impact on businesses and the community once the government subsidies are pulled back and taken right off the table. What's going to happen then? So I'm seeing both, and I'm not seeing too many businesses create really good ideas nor solutions around that. They're doing what I think is the worst thing to do, and that's they're waiting. They're just waiting. You hear a lot of comments around, oh my goodness, what's it going to be like when the government subsidies stop? What's going to happen to unemployment? What's going to happen to repayments on loans? What's going to happen to unemployment? What's going to happen to all of that? But that's a question. It's got to be followed by, okay, what are you going to do about that? You know the government subsidy is going to come off. What's going to happen? So I'm seeing both optimism as well as troubled thinking in this, and I'm not seeing, and this is only my opinion, but certainly in the circles I move in, I'm not seeing enough thinking about what we're going to do as distinct from what we're waiting for to happen.
But on the question of optimism, Alan, how important is optimism at a time like this, and communicating that optimism with staff, even if you're really unsure about what's going to happen ahead?
It's super important. I mean, the human psyche is not something that any of us really understand, but we certainly understand the power of it. We understand that the human psyche drives a lot of our behaviours, And pessimism versus optimism is going to have an enormous impact on what we do and what we don't do. So being optimistic about the future is the only way to go for anyone in business, particularly those who want to be leaders in business, and to impart that onto your people. Because without optimism, not only does it affect human behaviour, it affects human thinking. Through optimism will come the questions that I'm encouraging here as to what can we do in 2021? What can we change compared to the ways we used to run businesses were? Whereas even the midpoint of not optimistic, not pessimistic doesn't bring those questions to the front of mind. So we have to be optimistic so that we can be creative, so that we can show initiative, so that we can source ideas, and so that we can get those ideas from our own people so that they can engage the future. See, the danger with COVID is we're engaging the past. All the psyche is about, thank God we're through this. That's engaging the past. You've got to engage the future and say, the future can be fantastic here because this has given us a huge punctuation mark in business history to take stock and say, are the ways we run businesses the best? And the answer is categorically no. Of course they're not. There's not a perfect business in the world. Never has, never will be. This punctuation mark in history should ignite optimism, should ignite creativity, should ignite empowerment, leadership and teamwork beyond what it ever has before by engaging the future and what can it look like, not just relief from what we've just been through.
So what are the most important messages do you think that employers should be conveying to their people as we start 2021?
I would say with every business that I've had contact with through this 12 months, and that's hundreds. So this is not a naive comment, it's hundreds across the country. The one outstanding facet of human behaviour has been the step up in leadership from an incredibly high number of people. And that's happened because all of the usual functions of the job, of the business, all of the organisational structures had to be thrown out. Now, clearly there are many businesses that didn't have to work from home in construction and all sorts of stuff, but in a lot of businesses, the normal structures got thrown out. Now, with that, the normal leadership domain got thrown out with it because you got people working from home. So you had no choice but you had to trust them. You can't be on their shoulder, you're working, you're not working, and when you're working too and so on. So what I saw was really young people stepping up to leadership that they were never invited to do pre-COVID. Businesses are not good at doing that. They tend to invite leadership through seniority. They invite leadership through an organisational chart. They invite leadership through how long you've been in your role, through how long you've been with the business. But what COVID did was it invited leadership accidentally from everybody. So people were getting on Zoom screens and there'd be 10 people on screen and you'd notice that someone was really struggling with COVID. And it was often the newest member of the team would be saying, are we all okay? What might we do to help someone who's not okay? It wasn't the senior manager doing that as much as it used to be before. So one of the messages is, can we keep that? Can we keep this new paradigm of leadership, which is irrelevant to seniority, longevity, how much you're paid or how long you've been here? Let's keep that one. The second thing is, this has taught us to think and create because we had it all taken off us. We should not return from whence we came. We should remain in the vacuum of structure. We should remain in this whole, what do we do now? And don't just go back there. So think and create has to be the second message. And the third has to be, consider the rules that your business was run by, and particularly the unwritten rules, because they're the powerful ones. We all know the written rules, and that is you turn up on time, you don't go home before time, you have your lunch break and you do your job according to your job description and so on. Not that hard. But does that engender high performance in a person in a team? Of course it doesn't. I mean, if anyone thinks that, you listen to the wrong people. That doesn't. That's a written rule. But the unwritten rule is, when do you speak up? That's an unwritten rule. Who don't you challenge? That's an unwritten rule. What do you get involved in? When do you put your ideas forward? What do you do when you make a mistake? They're the unwritten rules that have a bigger impact on human performance than those that are written down. So this is the time to, one, identify what those unwritten rules are with your team. And secondly, create unwritten rules that are going to engender high performance and much higher levels of communication, leadership and teamwork than we ever had before. They're the three messages I'd be pushing.
Okay. Now, perhaps on a more prosaic level, but nonetheless important, times are going to be tight for so many business operators after a year of lost revenue for many. What do you reckon is the wise approach between cautious spending and going all out to make up for lost time?
I absolutely love that question. A colleague of mine, much smarter than me, made a comment to me some months ago of, I hope I can remember the words, it was something about the tyranny of the or and the power of the and. And what he argued was when businesses see the choice between A or B, sometimes they miss a wonderful opportunity by not thinking about can it be A and B. It's like, I'll give you a silly example. We've got two wonderful candidates for a position, so we go, oh my goodness, who are we going to choose, A or B? And we don't ask the question, could we employ A and B? And that might be that we employ A now, but we make absolutely certain that we're doing everything we can to get B on board somewhere over the next 12 months. Because the first thing businesses do is, oh, we can't afford that, we've only got one job. Well, that's just ridiculously limited thinking because you've got two quality people sitting on the table. So the power of and should come into our thinking. So when the question is, should we be conservative in our spending or go all out to make it back up? My answer is both. My answer is absolutely both. Because if you do one or the other, I think you're in danger. If you try and sort of save from what's happened, I'm not sure where that's going to take you, but if you go all out, that's pretty risky too. So I'd be actually putting the two together and say, well, what would that look like? If we try and be conservative our spending but go all out, what's that look like? And very few businesses will actually know the answer to that. And you've heard me say this so many times, Heather, it's when you ask the question you don't know the answer to, you're probably going to get better outcomes than you ever had before.
You've often said that you've got to be mindful of the people around you, that you perhaps listen to most closely or too closely sometimes, your equity partners, your old mates, who may or may not actually be helping you ahead.
I've seen more of that in this year, Heather, than I've ever seen in my entire career in business. That's a long, long time. Meaning that the problem solving that I've witnessed, so I'm not claiming any credit in this, that I've witnessed across people has been staggering. Where very, very senior people in business have fessed up to, I don't know. I don't know the answer. I can't solve the problem. I don't know the best way forward. And what I've witnessed is people then putting their hand up saying, well, let's talk about that. And someone eventually ends up saying, I've got an idea. And it has been amazing. And whilst that will just sound rhetoric, it isn't. So this eyes and ears, this learning and development from other people, this importance of your network is higher than I've ever seen it. But I also put another aspect on this, is that I'll give you my definition of networking. Networking is what you do for the people around you. It's not what you get from them. Business people have got this wrong forever. They think that their aim with networking is to have a whole lot of people around them who they know and who they think they like or whatever it is. And the fundamental question really that they have in their minds is, what is it that I can gain from my network? That is completely bloody wrong. I'd even question the morality of that, but anyway, it's completely wrong in terms of it doesn't work. People don't come to the party for people who expect something of them. People come to the party for people who do something for them. So this eyes and ears open to your network is what can I do for my network? How can I solve problems for them? How can I do favours for them? And what happens is it all comes back in spades. Now, I'm not even saying that's the objective. I think that would be on the wrong side of what we're trying to achieve professionally as well. So yes, eyes and ears open to a much broader group of people in terms of what you can do and engage their thinking. And that means perceive, watch, listen, put things together and come up with solutions from there.
That was business coach, mentor and leadership expert Alan Rodway. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow at BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.